So to pull this off, Enbridge will need a significant chunk of new land next to the existing corridor and stretching all the way from Superior in the north down to the Illinois border. Unfortunately, that strip of land contains hundreds of houses, barns, and churches already built there. Now here, I just want to show you, PHMSA has guidelines that they suggest for pipelines that carry hazardous materials, and those are for lines considerably smaller than line 61. And that suggested guideline is that any dwelling that is lived in should be 660 to 1,000 feet from the pipeline corridor. This is the 80-foot pipeline corridor's width. These houses are on the west side, and if they're on the west or the southwest side, I can't understand any other way that they're going to put in this new line without taking those houses down. That might be why they recently strengthened their eminent domain language in the anonymous 999 bill that passed in the state legislature without any signatures attached to it. A primary focus of WISE is to offer support to landowners facing the unthinkable. And that will be important because when Enbridge fixed their leak on Michigan's Kalamazoo by generously installing a much larger pipeline, the new easements their eminent domain powers allowed them to take from landowners put them in rather close proximity for folks who'd already seen more than enough of this pipeline company. Here is an excerpt from the blog Citizen Action Monitor, dated September 22nd, 2013. Marty Burke's relationship with Enbridge has been so contentious that he once faced arrest because he refused to allow the company to use his private road. The edge of the trench for Line 6B was originally going to be just 2 feet from Burke's house, so close that he worried the house could collapse into the trench, which would have to be about 8 feet deep and up to 8 feet across to accommodate installation of the pipe. For months I've been trying to tell them of the risks to my house, Burke said. They just tuned me out and said they were going to do what they wanted. My house didn't mean anything to them. Finally, an Enbridge engineer showed up and confirmed Burke's fears. Burke said the engineer told him there simply wouldn't be enough earth in the sidewall of a trench of that size to support the weight of Burke's 2,800 square foot Cape Cod style house. The engineer's decision was one of the few concessions Enbridge has made after months of negotiations, Burke said. Instead of digging a trench, the company used a counterbore method in which a machine digs a tunnel beneath the earth and the pipeline is pushed through the length of the tunnel. It is the technique used when pipelines cross roads or streams, at least in some cases, as Harry will talk about, where digging a trench isn't possible. They saved my house only to put the pipeline 7 feet away, Burke said. After the 36-inch pipe was installed, Enbridge used a procedure called hydro testing, which pumps water through the line at high pressure to check for leaks. Burke was in his basement when the test was conducted and said he could feel the vibrations and hear the whooshing of water through the pipe. Standing there with the whirling sound and the pulsing of the liquid going through the pipe makes you realize just how close it is, he said. It's frightening. Burke said Enbridge originally offered to pay him $6,000, the company's standard opening offer. Enbridge has since made higher offers, but Burke has rejected them. He hopes the judge in his condemnation case will order Enbridge to buy his house for its value before the pipeline went in. Who wants to buy a house with a big old pipeline 7 feet away, Burke said. I wouldn't, and I don't know who would. Having an easement does not give Enbridge the power to do whatever it wants to people's property. Fenton, Michigan resident Judy Tunker said she felt helpless. Quote, it wasn't how can we avoid your house and pool, but tough luck you lose. The Tunkers hired a lawyer to fight Enbridge. Judy Tunker blames the stress of the ensuing battle for her husband's stroke earlier this year. You can't imagine the stress this has caused, she said. Now this is a very short video, if it will play. Shot by a Sarasco, I think, Michigan resident David Gallagher from his living room. And if it won't play, that's a nice still of it. Now imagine a bulldozer going just over 1 foot from his picture window, and then another bulldozer, and then a length of pipe as he pans around his living room and watches his coffee cup shake. If you know someone living along the corridor, particularly the southwest side of it, please let them know they can contact WISE through our website. We are a grassroots nonprofit with resources to offer, and if Enbridge does go ahead with this massive project, no husband and wife should be sitting at their kitchen table facing easement nightmares alone. When Dane County realized how large Line 61's expansion would actually be, they required Enbridge to provide environmental impact liability insurance capable of ensuring any necessary spill cleanup. When Enbridge saw that they couldn't legally get around the fact that we had the right to protect ourselves, they simply hired lobbyists who conspired with state legislators to literally change state law, making it illegal for any county to require additional insurance on an oil pipeline. Enbridge claims their lobbyists had nothing to do with this anonymous legislation, and yet they're the only entity who could possibly have benefited from such a tightly worded denial of county rights. What they didn't deny was that they'd helped strengthen their eminent domain position through the same anonymous budget bill. And recently, they've been back to Dane County to demand that the board remove the original insurance language from the permit, even though those provisions can no longer be enforced. Despite the pipeline giant's protest, our board voted overwhelmingly to keep the insurance wording in, if only as a reminder that they tried to protect the county until that right to do so was stripped. Now I believe Enbridge is suing them. Stay tuned. We should have known better, even way back at the start. We should have seen the signs, even way back then. Because as concerned citizens were testifying on these issues before the county board, Enbridge representatives sat talking to each other rather than listening to us. It was a public hearing, but the public wasn't being heard. And then suddenly it occurred to me. To Enbridge, my fellow citizens and I were the overburden, the stuff in the way of what they want to get at, of what they plan to do. Perhaps that's an understandable position when in the face of a rapidly warming planet, you've nonetheless chosen to embark on a massive fossil fuel project. But it isn't how democracy works. Pipes crack, oil spills, and eventually the light gets in. This is our group at the People's Climate March in New York City. Clearly, we're not looking west anymore. It is past time to realize that we in Wisconsin are now ground zero for tar sands transport. Determined to fight back, we've begun to search for new sources of strength, new partnerships with others whose commitment to protecting our precious land and water has much deeper roots than the pipeline does.